Hi, I'm Ted from Roarockit, and I'm here today with Brett.
Hi.
And we're here to demonstrate our Luthier kit that the two of us have worked on to create in order to bend the sides of guitars and musical instruments. The kit comprises of two bags. One is 10 by 40, ideally suited for the sides of guitars, and the other one is 26 by 28. I'm going to show the different components of the bag. We have a vacuum bag that looks like this. It is 20 mil thick. It has sealing tape at one end that is reusable, and a valve that is attached to it like this. This valve gets attached to this hose. It plugs into this here, and then we have this little unit that we call a TUG, and the idea is the hand pump fits on top. This is a one-way valve, so once we pull the air out of the bag, it's completely sealed. And so that's the two components of what we're going to use today.
So I talked to Ted about creating a set of vacuum bags that we could use to laminate guitar sides. For me, I started laminating guitar sides a number of years ago because it was a lot easier to thin the veneer that was going to go on the outside and then bend it and then laminate it to a stable substrate. The way I used to do it before is I had this huge MDF mold that was this and another bigger part that was the negative of this, and then the veneer would go in between, and I would have like a number of clamps going all the way around, and by the end of it the thing was so heavy you couldn't move it around. Also, the veneers had to be a specific thickness to fill up the gaps, and if for any reason I made them even a hair thicker or thinner, then it would give me issues. So, and I had known that Ted was working on these bags because, you know, we worked together at the university, and so we sort of started talking, and we came up with a process that makes laminating these really easy, really safe, because sometimes we're using the precious wood and we don't want the process to go wrong. And that's what we're here today to show you. So we're just about ready with our lamination process of these two veneers. And over the number of years, I've actually used different types of glues, PVA glues, epoxies, white glues, tight bonds. And what I've noticed is that with regular woodworking glue, things tend to cup across the grain and twist along the grain.
So I think they cup and twist because the water in the glue expands the veneer.
Probably because these are so thin and fragile. So I've noticed that epoxy, because it doesn't have any moisture content, it tends to hold things a little bit more stable.
And it actually doesn't swell the wood at all.
Not that I know of. And we only need a little amount of epoxy because we just need to paint the surface. We don't want the epoxy to squeeze out all the surfaces. But one advantage I've noticed with epoxy squeezing out on the outside, that if we do actually seal the wood with epoxy to close all the pores, then it doesn't really affect the finish because it's the same material. So that is an advantage for me at least.
So the tone of the instrument when you use water-based epoxy as opposed to, water-based glue as opposed to epoxy, is there a difference between the two?
I've noticed that when I glue it with epoxy, and the whole frame of the guitar, once it's assembled and you tap it, it has a higher pitch. And so, whereas when you glue it with, you know, like tight bond or other PVA glues, it tends to be a little bit of a dead thud, and it's not as resonant.
Because it's rubbery.
Yeah. Those
glues are very rubbery.
So I don't actually know like how much it's affecting the final tone and the character of the instrument, but I'm assuming it has something to do with it. So we're using this squeegee razor blade because it's the best way to apply as thin amount of epoxy as possible. And
it's an amazing small amount of glue for that entire surface.
doesn't need much, it just needs to be painted. So we'll just
It's good.
yeah. So now if you put this down. And at this stage everything is slightly oversized both in width and length, so that I'm not really worried about alignment of things as much, although I would like it to be as good as I can get it. And just because these veneers are really thin and they tend to sort of be wavy, we'll use these pieces of styrene to support the grain on either side, and they add a little bit of stiffness to the whole sort of lamination process, but also they prevent the veneers to get glued to the bag, just in case there is, you know, excess epoxy squeeze out.
Yeah, the epoxy actually won't stick to the bag, but it's really good to have a separator.
Let's see.
These look to be about a 1/16 of an inch thick.
Yeah. So now I'll typically take these and take it around only on one side, because I don't want to take it on the end and end up with a little bit of gap because the veneer couldn't sort of pull in. So I'll only take it around this area, and that so far that it's worked for me.
So the two layers of veneer actually have to slide on one another, and if we tape the ends, that prevents that from happening. So we only tape it in the middle.
So we just want to make sure we have enough on this side that looks good to me. So Ted, if you could please just So now we're just about ready to put them in the bag, and what sometimes helps is to actually use a blower end of a shop vac and just blow some air into the bag to get it to open up. Now, because the bag sometimes could stick to itself, so then we'll just take the whole piece, and we want to be really careful not to get any epoxy on the tape and the other side of the sealing surface. And we want part of the side lamination assembly to be underneath the valve, and we use this breather mesh that is supplied with the kit, and what it does, it creates some voids around the valve so that it can pull the air from all over the bag and not just what's underneath the valve. And so that goes on like that, and we're ready to create the seal. And to do that, you kind of want to pull the edges really straight to make sure that everything is nice and flat.
Tape off.
And what I actually like to do is to slide in the piece of paper inside the bag so I don't lose it, because right before I pull this out after I'm done, I will reseal the tape so I can use it again. And you want to push down nice and tight and make sure it's all good. And I guess we're ready to start that.
Because I think you're using epoxy with a long set time, we've got lots of time to do this procedure.
So what we want to do is we want to push this sort of 1/4 inch hose in, and we want to make sure it's all the way to the end. And what we have to be careful is to make sure that we don't get the bag pinched between our layers of styrene and the veneers. Just stop in between to center things up to make sure that things are looking the way I would want them to be. And so that looks really good. And if you notice, the breather mesh is underneath the valve, so it can create some aerospace and pull the air from all over the bag.
You can actually see the epoxy seeping out the edges.
Yeah, and you can see that you're getting a perfect seam. So at this stage, because I'm only using 2 veneers, the whole assembly is going to be flexible enough that I can, work with it and sort of put it into the exact shape that I want. So typically I'll leave it and I won't even clamp it around like another external mold. But for the purpose of the video demonstration, we can show you how to get the veneers to stay in shape. So, and just so that, while the glue is drying, things stay in shape a little bit better, we're gonna clamp it around this form. It's a good idea to keep an eye on this for the first 20 minutes to half an hour. When sometimes we use porous woods, especially with like wingate that have deep pores in the wood, there's a lot of air that could be trapped in there, and it may seem like the vacuum bag is not actually holding the seal, but it is. It's just that there's more air into the little voids of the wood. So for first half an hour, once in a while I'll come back and just pump it a little bit. But this is pretty much 6 clamps, and I already have everything perfectly sealed up in the bag.
That looks really great. Looks as if it's going to get the job done, no problem.
So once I'm happy with my seal and my clamping method, I can actually take this off and go to a different bag and laminate a second set of sides. And to do that, I'll just pinch the tube with a little bit of spring clamp, and then I can just take this out and move on to another bag and use the same system again.
It's really great. Brad, thank you for coming in today.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, this is great working
see
together.
Your process. And
yeah.
Looks like it would be great to see what it's like when it's all done.
Yeah. Thank you.